Hello, friends of Oak Hills. This is Pastor Dale with our weekly video Touchpoint. Today is Thursday, February 22nd, 2024. This is part 4 of a series titled Jesus and His Money. This article is titled Money as a Tool for Heavenly Treasure. This is the 4th part of a series of reflections on Jesus' teaching about money and wealth in the Gospels. Randy Alcorn, writing in The Treasure Principle, Unlocking the Secret of Joyful Giving, says 15% of all that Christ speaks about relates to this topic, more than his teachings on heaven and hell combined. How does Jesus want us to think about money? How does the gospel affect our attitude toward the use of money? Join with me on this multi-week exploration of what Jesus teaches about money. One of the most difficult parables of Jesus to make sense of is the parable of the dishonest manager in Luke 16, verses 1 to 9. Jesus tells a story of a wealthy man who discovers that his property manager, whatever the form the property took, was wasting his owner's possessions. Upon learning of his imminent termination, this manager shrewdly refinances the accounts of several of his master's debtors, perhaps reducing the interest rate or limiting his own commission that he would earn from the earnings. The master then commends the manager for his shrewdness. How does this example of a corrupt, manipulative manager apply to the followers of Christ? Let's look at verses 8 and 9, where Jesus gives his application. He says, "The master commended the dishonest manager for his shrewdness. For the sons of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than the sons of light. And I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of unrighteous wealth, so that when it fails, they may receive you into the eternal dwellings." Jesus does not commend the manager's corrupt or manipulative use of his master's money. He commends his shrewdness. The manager understood that money could be used as a tool to secure his future. That is the shrewdness of the sons of this world. Jesus commends that sort of perspective on money, just not for our earthly future, but for our heavenly future. In verse 9, Jesus explains what this looks like for the sons of light. And 2 things we draw from this. Number 1, use money to touch the lives of others for eternity. This is what Jesus means by saying, make friends by means of unrighteous wealth. The wealth we earn and manage in this life is called unrighteous because it does not win us favor in the sight of God. It actually can be poisonous if we allow it to become the treasure of our hearts. But we can use it to make friends for eternity. Missions, evangelism, the ministry of the local church, even acts of kindness or sharing with others, all needing funds to operate on a regular basis, all providing opportunities to touch the lives of people with the good news of Jesus Christ. And by faith in Jesus, these friends will have eternal dwellings. Jesus is commending to us the perspective that money is a tool to be used for eternal purposes. And number 2, look to heaven as your storehouse. Unlike the dishonest manager, our storehouse of treasure and security is in heaven, not in this life. This is what Jesus implies when he says, when it, namely, the wealth of this world, fails. See, the wealth we earn and manage in this life will fail. It comes to an end. Jesus says, don't use your wealth to build up greater treasure and security on earth, but use it to store up treasure in heaven. Our treasure in heaven is God himself and our enjoyment of him. Our enjoyment of God in heaven is maximized by our faithfulness as stewards of our wealth in this life. Randy Alcorn explains Luke 16:9 in this way, quote, he says, "Our friends in heaven will be those whose lives we've touched on earth, who will have their own eternal dwellings. Luke 16:9 seems to say our friends' eternal dwellings are places where we stay in fellowship, perhaps as we move about the heavenly kingdom. The money we give to help others on earth will open doors of fellowship with them in heaven. Close quote. Next week, we'll look more closely at this concept of reward in heaven that Jesus references multiple times in the Gospels. In the meantime, let's be shrewd with the wealth God has entrusted to us. Let's use it as a tool to impact lives for eternity. A few highlights to touch on this week in the life of Oak Hills. First of all, just a reminder, our missionaries of the month are the Ingalls family, serving with Fathers in the Field. Pray for their ministry and the growth of that ministry, not only at Oak Hills, but in churches throughout our region. Secondly, next Wednesday evening, we are hosting an Oak Hills Church Family Collective. Everyone is welcome. Everyone is encouraged to come. We will have dinner served at 5:30 p.m. and we'll enjoy that fellowship over a meal together. And at 6:30, we'll gather together for a brief time for just giving praise to God and prayer for one another. And then our kids will split off and the youth will split off for their activities, youth group and Kid 360, and a special activity for kids younger than first grade. And then Pastor John is leading a seminar for the adults on the Great De-Churching. It's a sociological movement that we have been observing. Sociologists have been observing in America how people are leaving the church and quitting church and having nothing to do with it. How can we be faithful and loving and caring and sharing the hope of Christ with such people as the De-Church? So Pastor John's going to be leading and teaching on that subject next Wednesday night. I hope you're able to join us for that. Third, we are sending a missions team on a missions trip this summer to serve with Sacred Road Ministries in Warm Springs, Oregon. Pastor John is leading this team, and right now we are looking for those who are wanting to be a part of the team to get signed up, to get committed, so plane tickets can be purchased and arrangements can be made and fundraising can begin. And so if you are interested in being part of this trip, there is a meeting this Sunday following the worship service for the next steps and getting committed and being part of it. So contact Pastor John, let him know you're interested, plan to be a part of that meeting on Sunday after the worship service. And then pledge cards. We're asking for pledge cards to be turned in by the end of this month, so you have about a week left. The pledge cards, as we've been talking about this month, is an opportunity for you to prayerfully, thoughtfully, and intentionally think about your giving to God through the church. And doing a tangible act of writing down a percentage of your income that you will give to the Lord this year, and fold that up, put it in an envelope, submit it to the church so that Jerry Owens, our administrative assistant, can take note of that you've submitted that, and the elders will be corresponding with all those who have given pledge cards and thanking them and giving them encouragement and giving updates on a regular basis throughout this year. Pray for Oak Hills, pray for our ministry impact and our financial well-being as we seek to be faithful for the gospel. And then lastly, I want to let you know that we will be serving communion this Sunday. That's no news. We serve communion every week, but we're going to be serving a little bit differently. So our practice over the last few years was shaped by the COVID-19 pandemic, where we used little cups for all the elements. And so the bread wafers were broken apart and put into little cups, and you would take those out of a communion tray for juice or wine, and then also had juice and wine in those trays as well in little cups. We are no longer going to be putting the body of Christ, the wafers, in little cups. We're going to be putting them in bread trays. And so when we are distributing, there are going to be two trays coming to you. One is the bread tray for the body of Christ, for you to partake of the body. There will still be gluten-free wafers available for those who have that need in the center of those bread trays. But then the cup trays will have only white grape juice and red wine. And so you'll take both the body of Christ, the blood of Christ, and to participate in communion. So distributing will look similar, but there's going to be two trays coming to you where you're at. So you take the body and the cup during communion. So that's going to be happening this Sunday, the first Sunday. We're making that change and how we serve and how the elements are distributed. And want to give you that heads up so you're aware and not caught off guard on Sunday for that. Well, thank you for joining me this day for the Touchpoint. We look forward to being with you soon in worship. God bless.